everyone, welcome to Secondhand Blasters. This is Normatico here, and you know what? It is the end of 2023, and I have actually compiled a list of my top 5 blasters of 2023. This list is going to include ones from each of the major manufacturers. When I say major, I'm talking about Dart Zone, I'm talking about Air Warrior / Buzzbee. I am actually going to talk about Hasbro. Hasbro's actually going to have a couple of entries here because I'm splitting up the Nerf line and the Rival line only because of the fact that I kind of classify them as 2 different types of blasters. And then, of course, how can I forget Xshot? So let's go and actually start with the great granddaddy. Let's start with Hasbro. Talk about Nerf. Now, 2023 saw some really interesting releases. Of course, we all know that Elite 2.0 saw some major duds. In my opinion, the Double Punch was a great release. So that is actually on my top 5 blasters of Nerf brands. And then, of course, you have the Storm Charge, which is pretty cool, but it really is just a remake of a Strife, but in Elite 2.0 colors. Of course, you also have things like the Strife X, and that's pretty much the major ones. There were some major duds. One that actually is not a dud, but I just feel should get an honorable mention when it comes to being one of the top 5 Nerf blasters, of course, is the Blue Shock, part of the Fortnite line. It's a fun blaster. You know, it's an AR-15 build, essentially, in a Nerf blaster. What else can I say? Of those things, there can only be the top 1 for Nerf. In my opinion, it is a tie between the Double Punch and the Strife X. So of those things, that the Double Punch, when it came out, it was pretty cool. It is essentially a Rhino fire, essentially, handheld and semi-automatic, with that trigger that once you pull, it shoots out one. Once you release, it punches out the other one really fast, and there is no drop in FPS with this one. I actually have one of those in my collection. I did not get to do an actual review video on it because I acquired it before I started my actual channel. But I may be going back and actually doing it. It is one of the few Elite 2.0 blasters that is a resounding success, in my opinion. In that list are like the Moto Blitz, the Trailblazer, and the Storm Charge. That's it. Elite 2.0 has been kind of a letdown, but that's not what this is about. So definitely my number 1 is actually the Strife X. Strife X brought to us this year what everyone has been craving from Hasbro, a pro-level blaster that takes what modders have been doing for several years now and makes it off the shelf at a kind of high price. You know, if you saw my review video, you saw that you can get up to 162 FPS using the darts. The Strife X, though, is not a perfect blaster. It has a couple of issues. Let me go ahead and actually tell you what my problems are with the Strife X. First of all, let's start with the launch. Hasbro, how are you going to launch a blaster that's going to use proprietary magazines, even though it technically can use work or talons, but you're going to launch a new blaster with only one 15-round magazine, only 30 actual rounds that come with the blaster, and then you're not going to make new actual magazines available until almost an entire quarter later. Those of you who are looking for Nerf-branded magazines for your Strife X, go to Amazon for $9.99. This is actually really amazing. You can get Nerf, quote-unquote, Talon-style magazines in a 2-pack. You heard that right. It is a 2-pack, according to the advertising, for $9.99. That actually puts it at significantly less than the Worker-branded Talon magazines, which, even though Worker kind of has the industry standard for Talon mags, look, if I can get something where it's 2 for $9.99 and Worker is selling the equivalent at $15.99, I'm going for $9.99, especially since the Strife X magazine can actually fit in almost any of the Worker adapters, as well as any other adapter, period. The only downside that I have with the Strife X launch is that you can't really use any of the other magazines that you have other than Talon mags in the Strife X. Number 2, that price tag, $120 for a Strife X plus tax, kind of a tough call here, especially when you can buy a pretty used Strife for much less, about 20 bucks, okay? I'm sure some people try to sell them on eBay for like $35, $45, but then just the actual stuff that you need to get to the modding of a Strife X is not enough for $120. If you know what you're doing, you can actually build your own Strife X for less. Keep that in mind. However, if you are not a modder, hey, StrifeX is great. $120, that you're paying for your time, your parts, and everything else at that point in time. So the only other issue that I have with the StrifeX though is they changed to a proprietary rail system, but there's no attachments for this. So whereas with the standard tactical rail, you can use any Nerf attachment with a Strife. You can use any Picatinny rail attachment with any of the other blasters. But this one, there's nothing. You can't connect Nerf stuff to it. You can't really use Picatinny attachments with the StrifeX. What is it there for, Hasbro? What are you planning, and why did you launch the blaster without some more attachments, especially a front grip? I don't know. I don't know what you have planned, but here's hoping you do something, because it's a bad look. Now, the other line that Hasbro has, the other big boy line, of course, is Rival. Rival, I do consider it a different blaster because you use different rounds. So Rival, of course, this year, you had a couple of really good releases. This one was actually a hard call for me because I'm a big fan of both the Pilot and the Forerunner. Both are 2023 releases. The Pilot, you know, it's beautiful. You put a K25 in there and that thing is a beast. You put a K25 in the Forerunner and it's also pretty beastly as well. So which one do I choose? Stock, I'm of the opinion that the Forerunner wins this one. However, once you actually put a K25 spring in both of them, even though the Forerunner does equal in power to the Pilot, the Super Pilot wins. Here's why. The versatility of it. You've seen the video where you can actually buy these modded shells and you can shoot not only half-size darts, you can shoot full-length darts. You can actually shoot hyper rounds from it. You can shoot ultra rounds from it. And depending on the actual modification that you do with it, if you buy one of the shells that has an actual barrel attachment, a brass barrel to it, 6 inches of brass barrel, you shoot a mini dart out of that Pilot with the Super Pilot, that is with a K25 spring, you are hitting 185 with a ruby dart, and you are above 200 with a bamboo dart. That is amazing. So because of that, I'm actually going to have to give it to the Pilot, which is kind of weird. But I'll tell you, if you want to have a good time and see some people turn heads, take a Super Pilot out to a competitive play and use that as a secondary or as a backup blaster, or heck, if you're really feeling gutsy, carry your rounds in your pocket and use that as your primary one and see people be like, okay, whoa, how is this thing that accurate? And how are you shooting something so powerful and hitting me from 100 feet away? That's the Super Pilot for you. Now, we're actually going to change away from Hasbro and we're going to talk about Xshot. Xshot had a pretty cool year this year. Of course, you have the Longshot Pro, you have the Ragefire Insanity, pretty much the entire Insanity line, and of course you have the Lock Blaster. I have all three of those. All three of them are fun. I haven't actually had a chance to do a review on the Ragefire yet. However, I'm actually going to have to give it to the Longshot Pro. A lot of people love their Ragefire, but it is way too bulky for me. It is limited use because of how large it is. It's hard to do a hand carry. So you actually really have to have that tripod kind of in order to use it. And congratulations, you are standing there waiting to ambush people with it. So there's my issue with the Ragefire. The Lock Blaster, look, it's fantastic. And I'm going to tell you, it is really gimmicky. The locking mechanism is kind of cool that you can lock up your blaster so that only you can shoot it. But it's actually not something that hasn't existed before. The Rebel series did that with some of their bows. And I'm not going to say that the Lock Blaster did it better because, in my opinion, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. However, the reason that I like to give mention to the Lock Blaster, though, is because of the fact of what it did so well. So Zuru/Xshot, they do rotating drum barrels like chef's kiss. Pretty much the best in the business as far as I'm concerned. The only one that is close is the Tomcat on Dart Zone side, but that's simply because of the fact that you get 50 mini darts with that. But anyways, back to Xshot. I will say that their lever action is pretty amazing. It's smooth for the Lock Blaster, and stock, you're hitting around 70 to 75 FPS. I'll be honest with you, that lever action on the Lock Blaster is better than anything that Hasbro's done. It is better than the Slingfire. It is better than their Roblox Adopt Me Bees. It is better than their Scavenger. The only thing the Scavenger has going for it is the rapid action, I guess the setting for slam fire, whatever. However, number one in my opinion is what Dart Zone did with the Xshot Longshot Pro. In spite of it having a tricky launch because of the plunger tube problems. If you don't know what that means, it's that the plunger tube actually would crack the moment that you actually put a K25 spring. A couple of them even shipped crack, unfortunately, due to mishandling during, I guess, shipping. So that being said, though, very quickly the modding community actually released a fix for this, and that was in the form of a $13 aluminum barrel that you can find almost anywhere now. So $13 to fix a $29.99 blaster, you're still well under the cost of a Nexus Pro, and you're getting better performance stock than a Nexus Pro. So yes, the Xshot definitely is number one of the Zuru releases, slash the Longshot is the number one of the Xshot releases this year. Let's talk Dart Zone. So Dart Zone had an interesting year. Unfortunately, Normatico did not get his Christmas wish and did not end up with a Mark IV under the Christmas tree, even though they were on sale. Boo-hoo. I will tell you that Mrs. Normatico has, kind of laid down the law and said, no more blasters until you clean up the garage some, i.e. I need to give more blasters away. Next year can't come soon enough when I team up and actually donate a lot of my blasters to needy kids. Because Normatico needs some new blasters. Anyways, so the Mark IV, I cannot honestly give a good review, but from what I've seen of it, I've actually visited other people who have one of them. It looks pretty amazing. The main takeaway from it, though, is that it is a very long blaster. So if you don't have long arms, it's kind of ungainly in battle. So there's that. You have the Thunderbolt, which is, in my opinion, a reskinned Spectrum. A lot of people love it. They call it a Strife Killer. I think that they are smoking something, but whatever. It is a good blaster, though, but I don't know if it's worth the hype. Of course, you have the Solo, which was just dropped recently, and I love it. The Solo, if you are not familiar with this one, it is essentially a pro-level Jolt. When you can hit over 120 FPS using their, I guess, the Bamboo, second generation, or sorry, they call it the 2X Bamboo. I technically would be their third generation Bamboo darts. Whatever. That is pretty impressive for a single shot blaster. And almost immediately, like, this thing came out when I was in the hospital earlier this year, and within a week, people are already modding these things and selling out kits to make it even better. So, oh my gosh, what a great little blaster this is. What a fun little blaster it is. So, let's see, what other Dart Zone releases were there this year? We had, yeah, those are the main ones that I can think of. Of course, there were other, because Dart Zone is Dart Zone, and they release a lot of things. They did release another Magnum, and yeah, but I'm going to have to give it this year. This year, the number one Dart Zone release, it's, the Omnia. The Omnia, I can't forget the Omnia. The Omnia is, in my opinion, tying for the best Dart Zone blaster this year. I know it had problems. A lot of people got the first version where they had the trigger lag and it would shoot a little bit to the right. Mine, when I did my review, it was fine for a while, and then I noticed the trigger lag. It did shoot straight, though. So, that being said, I wrote to Dart Zone when I noticed the problem that I had with the trigger lag, and they gave me the second generation, which I'm going to tell you, there's still a little bit of trigger lag. A little bit. Not as much. Dart Zone, you guys keep that customer service, because you obviously care about your customers, I guess, for lack of a better word. Whatever. So the Omnia is up there on my list of best releases. However, I gotta give it to that Solo. The Solo, again, the Omnia is not anything I haven't seen. It is a select fire blaster. It is much faster rate of fire than, say, the Pro Mark III, but the reason that I give it to the Solo is because the Solo is a pro-level tiny blaster. It's great. It is pocket size. You can put that in your pocket at any point in time and carry it around. The Omnia, it had a couple of flaws. So, again, I have nothing negative to say about the Solo. There's a couple of negative things I can say about the Omnia, even though, in my opinion, it is an amazing blaster. So, number one release this year for Dart Zone, it's going to be to the Solo. Now, of course, there are other blasters. Busby Toys, you know what? Not very many releases this year that actually hit the mainstream. But the one that you did, even though there were a lot of flaws in my opinion, it was fun. That easy fire, you can't really aim with it when you're doing the slam fire, but it's a fun blaster. It's really cool. That little, motion of just pulling back, pulling back, pulling back. It's fun. So yes, we need more fun blasters from you, Busby. That's the way to do it. You are taking the market away from Hasbro with this. So yes, let's do more easy fire type blasters. And then, of course, you have the non-major store brands. Worker, I'm going to give you an honorable mention because even though you are all purchased online, you can't really buy them at a physical store. You guys released a blaster this year that everyone raves about. I do not have one. However, I have seen it play in my local parks, and I've actually been able to fire one of them, and man, is it pretty sweet. The Worker Seagull this year, bravo. You guys, it's a little bit pricey. It's $185, $175. I think now it's only $150 after a few months. But that being said, if that's the level of play that you're at, definitely get yourself a Seagull. These things are cool. They feel really good. So yeah. So unfortunately, there's only one major blaster of the year. And I have to pick one. You've heard the ones that I picked from each grouping. Of those things, I want to give it to the Strife X because, man, Nerf is the industry standard, unfortunately. I say unfortunately. But this year, I'm going to actually have to give it to Xshot with their Longshot Pro. In spite, and I know people are going to be like, oh my gosh, you're such a fanboy. But in spite of that plunger tube issue, it is $29.99. For those of you on a budget, for $29.99 plus maybe $50 worth of upgrades, brand new barrel, a front attachment that actually lets you swap out the barrel easily, which isn't necessary. You can actually just shave the stock one, and replacing it with a stronger K25 spring, you got a blaster that can hit well over 250 FPS. Oh my gosh, that puts you at less than $70 at a blaster that can keep up with all of the big boys. And I'll tell you what, for that, you win Blaster of the Year. Because if that thing breaks on you, for $70, you can actually just get everything else again. And you're still paying less than a brand new Worker branded blaster. So, there you go. Xshot, you win Blaster of the Year this time. Now, if you have your top favorite list, go ahead and actually post it in the comments. Of course, we are going to be back in 2024 with a whole new list, and there are more blasters that have come out at the tail end of 2023 that I got to take care of. So keep on watching, subscribe, like, and go ahead and comment on my videos. And if you share them, again, you'll get more credit to the next giveaway. But we are actually almost at 300 subscribers, and it's only the end of 2023 now. I think I'm only short of 32 subscribers until we get to 300, which is, hey, you know what? I'm happy because I haven't made a new video in almost 2 weeks. So I want to go ahead and actually thank you all again for watching Secondhand Blasters in 2023. I look forward to seeing you all in 2024. And until next time, keep on blasting.